this title at all.
Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is Scribes and Scrolls. And I'm just now noticing a 9 got dropped on the title. This is not chapter 9, this is chapter 99. This is book 7, Under a Red Moon, chapter 99. May
Wow.
our blood forever run red. We'll get to this in just a few minutes, and maybe they'll find out what that cryptic title means. But a couple of real quick announcements before we get into things. One, if you look up above Cari's head, right over here, you will see these magical tomes. We're at 11 domain tomes. Domain tomes are, of course, a way that you, the audience, can participate in our stream simply by tipping $5, cheering 500 bits, subscribing, resubscribing, gifting a sub. All those will earn domain tomes for the players that they can use for things like re-rolling a check, drawing a hero point card. They can use 3 of them to avoid certain death, or they can spend 5 to change the level of success of any check by 1 degree up or down for either a player or a game master. Second, this is a stream, a role-playing game played by adults. Let me see. I've added these new chat commands, and I want to use them. So as we talk about our audience, we are adults portraying fictitious characters in a fantastic setting. You may hear graphic depictions of violence, intense, dramatic roleplay, or sensitive topics, including but not limited to divorce, bullying, alcohol and substance use and abuse, and more. If this is something that doesn't appeal to you, we encourage you to take care of yourself and leave the stream. It is important, kind of in the context of that, to make everybody aware that we have safety tools in place. All of our players have participated in the session 0, where we've discussed our specific lines and veils, established all of those. Additionally, we have safety tools in place to make sure that everybody at the table is safe and has fun. We use the traffic light system. We encourage you to use session 0's lines and veils and other safety tools at your own table. With the command safety tools that I've just typed in, you can see there's also a URL that will take you directly to the TTRPG Safety Toolkit, which is where I got the RPG consent checklist that I use with all my games and the traffic light system. There's a handful of other explanations, such as the X card, that is also in there. And I believe a lot of that was written and or curated by Lauren Bryant Monk, who I had the honor of serving on a panel with and running a game for at Breakout Con, with none other than, as a special guest of none other than Gary. And I was very pleased to see that while I came prepared to run, I actually printed physical traffic light cards that I used at my tables. I handed these out to players. The con had X cards on every table, with thorough instructions on how people could use those. So that's really cool to see. Breakout's actually the first con the only con I've seen do that. But I don't go to a lot of cons either, so that can't be an indictment on other cons. That's just my own personal experience. I wanted to say, since Gary's heavily involved in that,
I'm
I probably said it before.
Breakout Con is better,
but
not saying it.
I mean,
not saying that.
We were driving home from Breakout Con, already making plans for Breakout Con 2025. So
that's badass. That's awesome.
Which is going to be a busy time because Gary Con's like a week before or a week after that. So the irony of going to Breakout Con to hang out with Gary, to then go to Gary Con to not hang out with Gary.
What
a weird world we live in. Anyway, the last announcement before we get into our game here is just a reminder that you matter. Your presence on this earth makes a difference. whether you believe it or not, it is true. Sometimes the hardest part about getting help is knowing how to get help, how to go about it, where to find help. I know that was the case for me. For a long time, I knew I wanted some help for depression and anxiety. I just didn't know how to get started. And I don't want other people to have that problem. So if you are in that boat where you want somebody to talk to, whether you're struggling or whether you just think, hey, it'd be a good idea to talk to somebody, all you have to do is type !help in the chat like I just did. Or you'll see the information that pops up when you type that show up at the bottom of the screen. A couple URLs, findahelpline.com, or you can check out the growing list of resources at takethis.org. We encourage you to check those out, bookmark them, save them for yourself, save them for a friend, and remember, you matter. With that, for what is rapidly becoming one of the last times,
oh my gosh.
Cari, what
What
time is it?
Sad. It's time to find some paths, bitches.
So, recently, Flip, Teera, and Kane were traversing the skies, having left the Cinder Wastelands behind, as well as a trail of blood, to be quite honest, but probably from some people that deserved it. You made your way around the Mindspin Mountains, heading into the Gravelands, where your ship was attacked by a bone ship, an undead skeleton ship and crew. Sort of a welcome wagon to the Gravelands, if you will. That ended with Teera and Kane in particular not doing so hot. And the Zephyrhawk essentially crash landing into a dry riverbed in the sort of a river valley in the middle of nowhere. While recovering from all of this and just trying to figure out how to recover, how to rest, Kane was applying some of his natural healing to both himself and Teera. There was a couple hours to kill in which Flip got very philosophical in some discussions with Teera. And then all of you began to notice this peculiar scent of burning, and were taken down memory lane, so to speak, as you saw essentially the village that you lived in when you were a kid, Teera, you and Kane, burnt to the ground. You found your old home. But you also found, Flip found the bodies of several kobolds who may not have been directly familiar to Flip, but there was some sort of subconscious familiarity to these kobolds. But he also found a white lab coat and a child's drawing. You found a dead wolf and a broken bow. You found your father's shattered greatsword. You found
Mimosa glass.
Yep, you found a burned home full of burned books and a broken mimosa glass. You found in the town square the shattered statue of a turtle lying in pieces on the ground, and Kane found the bodies of his partner and his, mother-in-law, I guess, and what he thought was the body of his daughter. It was around that point where you heard the thrashing, crashing sound coming from the woods, and to both Teera and Cari's shock,
I still fucking hate this thing. I'm sorry, it makes me physically uncomfortable.
a familiar hut belonging to Melina Frostheart came charging out of the woods atop two very giant, what looked like massive chicken legs, a la Baba Yaga's Dancing Hut. It came into a region of this burnt out village, sort of nestled down into the rubble like a chicken settling into roost. And as the house settled, the door opened, and a little girl came rushing out, Cain ran forward to meet her before he could even think to control himself, calling out his daughter's name, Teera, and embracing her. And it was then that Melina Frostheart herself emerged and is standing before you and said, "We have a lot to talk about. What would you like to do?"
Kind of look at Flip. And I just kind of like shrug. Like, I have to go talk to her. You're welcome to come with me or not.
I mean, this isn't even the weirdest thing I've seen today.
Yeah. Well, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Let's hear what she has to say. We can always kill her. What?
You just see Melina just kind of chuckles.
Oh my god. This is terrifying. Teera would kind of like seemingly begrudgingly go forward and go into the hut. Does it look like Cain is coming with us, or is he staying out here?
You see, as you start heading towards the door, Melina turns to Cain and to the younger Teera and says, "Come along, inside." Without hesitation, the young girl pulls away from her father and turns and runs inside, but she does stop. As she darts past you, she stops sort of at the frame of the door and turns back and says, "Come on, Papa."
And Teera is like looking at this girl and kind of almost like in a spellbound kind of way. Obviously, literally familiar. A lot of her features are like eerie and look like her brother and look like her, and it's a little weird.
There's definitely a hint of looking into a mirror into the past. But also you can see some of the other, though you didn't know her mother, you can see that there's some other features that are playing in from Ingvald.
Mm-hmm.
And at hearing Teera call him Papa, Cain, without hesitation, heads towards the door as well. So everybody goes in?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As you walk in, before closing the door, Melina says, seemingly just into the room, "Fetch the others, see that they are able to travel." And a shadow detaches itself from the wall and just sort of and moves across the ground and disappears out the door.
Nope, don't like that. Ugh, okay.
Inside, Teera, this cabin is incredibly familiar.
Mm-hmm.
You were here in this very place when you were transported here, when your mother made the offer to you quite some time ago. You join her willingly to join her at her side as a winter witch. You refused her, but it was right in that chair over there, not far from the fire, that she shattered your father's sword and remade it in frost and blood. Flip, you've never been here before, that you can recall. The interior looks very much like a cabin you might find on the side of a snow-covered mountain. You even see some of things like snowshoes and parka jackets and things like that hanging near the door. There's a fireplace. There's a table hewn from logs near the fireplace. A few comfortable-looking chairs. At the fireplace is a large black cauldron that something is bubbling inside. You're not sure. The only thing that seems different, Teera, as you enter into this, and as soon as the shadow departs, you hear the as the door is closed and locked. You notice that every wall of the cabin has at least 2 doors on.
Huh. Okay.
In fact, on the wall that would be to your left, where there's 2 windows looking outside, there's a door between them. Come on in. Make yourselves comfortable. We have much to talk about.
Teera would go over to that chair that she sat in before. She would sit there again. It's like she's almost like insisting upon it. Like it's her decision now. And she sits there.
As you sit there, a snow white cat leaps up into your lap.
I just let it be there.
Little Teera comes running over and just without hesitation gets on her knees right next to you and sort of does that thing little kids do where they come right up to you and they just sort of lean on your lap with just that level of familiarity that only kids can do.
Yeah.
And leans over and just starts petting the cat and kind of putting her face in. And she looks up at you and says, "This is Asmodeus."
Oh God. Oh God. Teera goes, "Oh, hello, Asmodeus," and she would at this point kind of like scritch the cat and still kind of like staring at this little girl. She's kind of trying to like, she doesn't know if like what's gonna happen here, and she's kind of trying to take like a mental snapshot.
Kane is standing near the door, almost like he's afraid to walk any further into the house, but he can't take his eyes off of his daughter, where she's over by you. Flip, what are you doing?
Flip is taking the scene in. Very curious about this Melina person that he's certainly heard so much about. And he's going to let Teera sort of lead the conversation. But he seems ready to be short-tempered.
Make a perception check, Flip.
Okay.
Teera, go ahead and make one as well.
Okay. Perception.
Oh, 29.
I got a 34.
Flip. You notice that as Kane has entered and is standing there at the door, he's primarily watching his daughter and his sister. So he's sort of biting at his lower lip. Both hands are resting on the hilts of weapons. And he keeps making a sort of nervous sideways glance, not entirely looking at Melina. Like he's glancing in her direction, but he's afraid to make eye contact with her. And it's that perception check that allows you to know that he is afraid to make eye contact with her. And while he appears on the surface to be sort of combat ready if necessary, the presence of his daughter is compromising him.
Uh-huh.
You can see that the likelihood of him making a mistake or not acting when action is required is pretty high. Teera,
Mm-hmm.
the young girl at your lap petting the cat. She's petting Asmodeus, who has started to purr, a deep rumbling purr.
Can I real quick say one interjection?
Yes.
I think Tira has kind of like she's like petting this cat for a little bit, and then as she's staring at this her niece, presumably, she kind of does like look and like at the girl's hair and like has like eventually just kind of like touches it and holds it up kind of and like it looks just like hers. And it's just kind of in that moment.
And that's probably a tribute to your high perception check, is that this little girl, this little Teera, is using petting the cat as a pretense to keep looking at you. She's like, I feel like this is something that's probably familiar to most people or anybody that's been around kids. From her perspective, 4-year-old girl, she's kind of on her knees in front of you, petting the cat, sort of burying her face in the cat and peering over the cat through the fur up at you. Like she's looking like she's showing affection at the cat, but you keep seeing her steal glances. And when you reach out and sort of touch her hair, which feels very clean, soft, no tangles or anything like that. She's been well taken care of. She seems clean overall. She kind of glances up at you and then locks eyes with you and just kind of peeks over Asmodeus and says, You're very pretty.
And Tira smiles and she just kind of like, despite herself in this pretty tense situation, kind of laughs. And she just said, You are too.
I know.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I love her so much.
She reaches up. She kind of stands up and honestly, I think she just starts to climb up into your lap.
Oh.
And she's sort of sitting facing you, kind of up on her knees, kind of pushed back a little bit away so she can kind of take you in. And I think she's reaching over and tracing, just kind of almost absent-mindedly, she's tracing your scars. And then she's kind of tracing the tattoo of the wolf on your shoulder, and she's not really saying much, but you can see her kind of furrowing her brow every once in a while. And then she just seems to have taken a liking to you. In fact, I think that's when Melina speaks up, as she kind of walks over towards, kind of walking around a preparation table that's sort of near, I guess what would amount similar to like a kitchen, sort of an island with, there's remnants of food that's been prepared. There's also remnants of what looks like might be spell components and things like that.
Gotcha.
As she kind of walks around and looks at the two of you and looks down at you, Teera, and says, Well, that did not take long for her to take a liking to you. Blood knows blood.
Yeah. And Tira, like, it's same kind of thing. Like for just a second, she had kind of let her guard down, but then like the tenseness has pretty rapidly returned to this situation, and she is feeling like very, very protective over this little girl.
She turns suddenly to Flip and Kane. Are you hungry?
Oh no. The last time I ate food offered to me by a weird stranger, it ended up with some really bad visions. I don't know if it was a mushroom stew of some kind, but I'm not gonna fall for that again.
What if it was food from somebody that you may have familiarity with? Well, maybe not
What if
you.
it was food from someone I didn't have familiarity with? Ridiculous question.
She just simply raises her head up, almost like she's listening, and then she kind of nods. And that door between the two windows, you hear this sort of a knock, 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 knock. And then the doorknob turns. And when the doorknob turns, a green sort of scaly looking face, dragon like, pokes its head in. You have not seen this person in a very long time, Teera. But a sort of hunched over, elderly looking, I'm gonna say Dragonborn because that's what they were when they appeared. I know those aren't here in Pathfinder world, but as anti-hero steps out and says, "Oh dear, it's so delightful to see you. Manina was telling us we would have guests. I have prepared a wonderful mushroom and beef stew. If you would like to partake," and she heads over. "Girls, we'll take our bowls and return." And you see as the sort of red looking dragonborn Anti-Portentia comes hobbling in.
God.
And the
Cahoots.
black, almost grayish Anti-Nocturne. These are, of course, the 3 dragon antis that you met on the road to the chalet all those many months ago. They sort of walk into the room and immediately begin serving up in wooden bowls. They go ahead and serve up some food for Flip, Kane, Teera, Melina, and themselves. And they take their bowls and they start to shuffle out of the room. The red dragonborn lingers for a moment. Anti-Portentia. She turns and looks at you, Teera.
I knew that it was going to be likely that our paths would cross once again. I'm glad to see you looking good.
Thank you.
Try to stay that way.
And she nods. And the 3 dragon antis head back through the door. And as it closes behind them, you hear the latch, and then you hear it sounds like multiple locks engaging. There's a moment where you feel and hear something outside the cabin. Something moves past. You're looking at that door where those windows are, and you suddenly see something move in front of one of the windows. And then it appears to be in that space between, and then it crosses in front of the other window and hesitates. And you realize, looking out that window, that you are looking at the gnarled, twisted roots, bark, and limbs of a living tree.
Wow.
What in this world is known, they're known as arboreal regents. But this one has a twisted darkness about its roots. It has sort of purplish looking leaves, and in one gnarled limb and root hand, it's holding a familiar looking axe. This is a now mobile corpse root tree of Marta.
Oh my god.
And you
She's
watch
fully a tree.
as it reaches up towards above the window, and then you see one of these big tree legs kind of lift up, and you feel the whole cabin shifting, and you can hear the roof creaking as Marta, the arboreal regent, climbs atop the top of the hut. And you hear what sounds like creaking wood and cracking wood, and if you look up as dust sort of falls down a little bit, you see several of these roots that you saw that had sort of worked their way into the deck of the Zephyrhawk come through the roof and sort of move across the ceiling, feeling out towards the walls. They stay away from the doors. Wherever there's a door, they don't go near, but they stop at the edges. When the movement stops, there is, through that window, you see the windowsill sort of darkens with shadow, and the shadow slinks in and slides across the floor to connect with Melina, who you had not noticed was shadowless up until this point. Oh, good.
Oh.
Your friends have joined us. We can get going.
Lip is going to smack his lips a little bit. Did I eat any mushrooms now?
Only if you choose to do so. You will not be forced to eat anything against your will here. Brace yourselves for just a moment. And she sort of reaches out and grabs hold of the edge of the table. Young Teera, just where she was sitting like this, she just sort of turns sideways and plops into you shoulder first, Teera, and puts an arm around and just whispers, "Hold on."
I do.
And
I
you
grip
see,
the arms of the chair and I grip her with the other arm.
you feel the entire cabin shift and go,
Oh my god.
and looking out the window, you watch as your viewpoint rises about 30-some feet in the air. For a moment, you feel this gentle, not so gentle, I should say, for a moment, shifting and swaying. And you can hear that just faint sort of footfalls. And looking out the window as a reference point, you can see that the hut is now traveling at a speed that the Zephyrhawk would not be able to match, as it is sprinting across the landscape. Once it gets going, once it gets up to speed and gets going, the movement sort of settles in and it becomes this very subtle shifting back and forth. I don't know if you've ever seen a chicken, like if you hold the chicken, you can move this thing all over its place and its head just stays put. They have this weird sort of balance thing going on. That's sort of like what's going on with the hut. You are now in motion with apparently a now fully mobile Marta, the corpse root regent, atop the hut. So Cari, that artwork that totally freaked you out of the cabin with the chicken legs. Now picture a living tree on top of it, riding it like a horse.
Jesus.
Oh man,
this is all so fucking Lovecrafty and horror. I hate it. And we're in there.
This is good old classic Russian literature.
Oh my god.
With a D&D twist.
Wow.
Once the house is in motion, Melina looks over and says, "Teera, you should eat now, dear." And little Teera sort of slides down off your lap and walks over to the table, sits down on one of the benches, picks up a spoon, and starts eating some of the stew that was placed on the table. Kane moves over and sits next to her at the table. They're both sitting so that they have a view on the room. If the rest of you would like to eat, you may do so.
Teera stands up and looks at this food and is there room on, so like say little Tira's here, Kane's here, is there room on the other side of little Teera?
Like opposite or on the
like
shoulder
next
to
to
shoulder?
her. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
That one. Okay. Teera would grab a bowl of this stew and sit on that side of little Teera, kind of flanking her with Kane on either side.
Melina slides into the side opposite the three of you, looks over at Flip and says, "You may join us if you wish. Don't feel obligated."
Good. Great chatting with you.
I know this is seems to be a bit of a family affair, but you have your part to play in things to come.
No shit.
You see, she smirks a little bit, but it's not near the chuckle that she gave before. For the next few moments, she makes no attempt to speak to any of you as she takes up a spoon and just starts to eat some of this stew.
Shira's eating. She's kind of like, yeah, she feels pretty like this is as defensible a position in this weird situation as she could manage. And she's just kind of keeping an eye on Kane and keeping an eye on Flip and keeping an eye on little Teera and most of all keeping an eye on Melina.
After a few moments, in between bites, she just says, "I hope it wasn't too traumatic for you to relive some of what you saw back there."
What was all that?
Your memories.
Was it? Yeah. Why was all of that? Is maybe the better question.
You're in
Is that
the...
you're doing?
I wish I could claim credit for it. You're in the land... You're in the Eye of the Dread now. You're in the land of the dead, the Gravelands. And the dead like to remind the living that death is always imminent. Everything was sort of jumbled because all of your memories were seeping in together. The place in which you had found yourself was this sort of a nexus point of ley lines, some would call it. The magic there is strong and the dead use it to their advantage whenever they can. I sensed the ley line activity as I knew you were in the area, but not exactly where. I got there as quick as I could. Had you lingered for much longer, well, the welcoming party would have shown up and you may have had a fight on your hands.
So all those things that we saw, were they real things? I mean, I know some of it was real and some of it wasn't, and some of it was memories, and we have friends that I mean, there was remnants of friends, old friends that looked like maybe they were gone. Are they really?
If you saw friends of yours, people that you care about, dead, or in some morbid display, you can rest assured that they are most likely still living. If they were already dead, the dead wouldn't bother tormenting you with the possibility of their death.
And Teera seems to kind of take comfort in that, and she nods her head and she takes another bite of the stew.
You've been through a lot.
I know.
Not just since last I saw you. You've been through a lot since... Well, since you and your brother left.
Yeah.
You've all endured
much.
much up to this point, too.
What about it?
You refused to join me.
I did.
And you went ostensibly to save your friends. As I understand it, both the half-orc and the orc are now gone. The oracle is currently a corpse root region to top my cabin. The cavern elf left for the underworld. Your total friend is still made of stone. And others who have traveled in your company are either no longer with you or as near to death as possibly can be without actually being dead. So, while you've been through a lot, it seems as though you've accomplished almost nothing.
Well, if we weren't 30 feet up in the air right now, this would be when I take my leave. I don't need to hear all that shit from you. I know exactly what I've been through. And I don't need to be reminded about all the people I've lost. We've lost. And I look over at Flip.
I was merely pointing out that you were none the better off than when you left here. In fact, I'd say you were worse off. Had you taken my offer, you may have succeeded months ago, and all of your friends may still be alive.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
At no point did I promise fairness in any of this. But you should be thanking me right now.
Why? For saving us from seeing terrible shit? We've seen plenty of terrible shit.
You're running out of time. Your airship crashed. The way I see it, if I hadn't shown up when I did and gotten us going as we are now, you wouldn't make it to your destination in time. Oh, I'm sorry. I should make it clear that I am fully aware that you are heading deep into the Gravelands in search of the Temple of the Black Lotus that only appears during the Blood Moon. You're seeking the Black Lotus.
We are.
Why?
That is none of your business.
Why is it so important to you?
Well, you just listed all the people we've lost. Maybe they don't have to be lost.
Who was it that told you about the Black Lotus?
I don't remember. Cari doesn't remember.
I feel like Teera probably would.
I'm sure.
It was Ravonna Shadowheart.
Oh,
Who set you on this quest.
fuck. Yes, it was. Well, it was your sister in arms, as it were. Ravonna Shadowheart.
Ah, yes. My Coven's sister. Though you trusted enough to head off on this errand, risking the lives of yourselves and others, yet you won't even trust me.
I don't trust you. You've proven who you are.
I've never really hidden who I was, except when you were a child. That was for your own safety. It's my hope, now that we are all united here, that perhaps you and young Teera here will join me. You'll reconsider my offer. You think a coven of witches is powerful. But when those witches are all of the same blood, when they are a family, you are my daughter, Teera. Not originally of my blood, but of my heart. And little Teera here, well, Cain, as he calls himself now, was born of my love for your father and his love for me. And little Teera was born of his love for Ingvold and her love for him. So once again, love and blood. There's power in those things.
I think there's more concerning you. I think it's the power that you want. I don't think it's love. I don't think you ever loved my father. My father who wasn't my father. You stole me. You stole me from my real parents. You stole any life I could have had. You killed them.
I think you're meaning to say rescued.
Rescued from what?
You would have been lucky to have seen your 13th year living in that hovel by the river. When I commanded Dirkad to steal you from them, it was for selfish reasons. But I rescued you. If it were not for me, your life would have been over a long time ago.
And Teera kind of like looks up. She's kind of been like she's been like hesitant to like even make eye contact with Melina. And then she like looks at her dead in the face and just says, my life was over that night the village burned. I've died many times over, and you don't know anything about it. You don't know anything about it.
Flip is going to interject at this point. And he's going to look at Melina. And he's going to say, all right, so at some point, are we going to, I don't know, stop this kumbaya business, snapping our fingers and not showering for a year? Are you going to tell us what your angle is? How you benefit from us going to get this lotus? Because obviously you're helping us for your own selfish ends. It benefits some machination of yours in some way. Well, why don't you just share it instead of beating around the bush and talking about family values and rescuing Teera from the river and how you love Dirkhead and that other guy loved this other person and Kane's whatever. You know, maybe just like get to the point.
Here, here.
It's not kumbaya. I'm sincere in my wish for Teera and her niece to join me at my side, to form a true Frostheart Witches Coven. That is only a portion of it. I don't hide my motives behind any sort of curtain. I want what's so many of us want. I want not to die. Immortality. I want to deprive Pharasma of my soul for eternity. Joining me in my coven would also preserve your daughter, as he turns to Cain, and as he looks straight into your eyes, Teera, and your sister. I'm helping you because each of you has things that you desire. We all have the same goals in mind. They converge. We can help each other. You want your half-orc lover back? You want your turtle friend not to be made of stone? You presumably want your halfling oracle back to her normal self. You'd like to see your cavern elf friend again. And you. You're not whole. Whether you know it or not. You are a fractured soul.
Flip he's going to look at Melina, and his dark eyes are going to flash for a moment. And he's going to say, maybe, but I'm precisely where I need to be. And nothing else really matters. But also, Flip is going to hand a slip of paper to Teera. And it's something he jotted down as he was saying his spiel.
Mm-hmm.
And if Teera was to open it,
I do.
It would say "Live Forever."
It just says "Live Forever."
Yeah.
Oh my god, awesome! I don't know what it means, but Tira's like, cool.
It just he predicted what she was about to say.
Oh my god, that's bizarre. That's like a magic trick, and Tira's secretly like has childlike delight, but can't display it right now.
I think what you failed to recognize, as you've, like a puppeteer, have been pulling people all along on their strings, is that there's more to this world than you can see. And the playthings of the gods, such as we are, tend not to win in battles of will. Stubborn as you may be, I'd bet on Pharasma.
I've had a long time to think on this myself. This is why I want to strengthen the position in this world with my family as my coven. Oh, we were strong when we were the Frost Hearts, the Shadow Heart, and the Briar Heart. The Briarheart lost a mind and her heart. The Shadowheart, well, her heart wasn't really in it. She was more concerned with her standing within society. Don't get me wrong, they're still with me, as we're sisters, and we'll always be together. But not in the true sense of the coven that I am hoping for you girls.
Teera would lean forward on the table and she would just say, "We don't want to."
Well, we have plenty of time until we arrive at the temple for you to think about this. In the meantime, When was the last time you saw Vonuk, I believe is his name?
It's been a while. And Tira's really trying hard to hide it, but like thinking about him hurts. Yeah, visibly.
As she's talking, she walks over to one of the doors that's next to the fireplace. And she just kind of smiles and nods, and she reaches over to the door and she knock, 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 knock. You hear shh. She opens up the door, and this is a wall that should, by all rights, this door should open out into next to the fireplace, next to the chimney outside.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you see another room on the other side of this door.
Hmm.
What you see is a room with a dirt floor, a few lanterns hanging, and in the lantern light you can just make out that the ceiling seems to be made of roots. Come, take a look. And she steps back. No trickery here.
Teera stands up.
You walk over there and look in through the door. As you get closer, you are looking into the small, sort of almost like grotto that was beneath the spa where Shadowheart showed up
Yeah.
and Power Word killed Vorn.
Yep, I remember.
And Vorn was picked up like a puppet and pulled into this knot of tree roots. As you peer around, you see standing upright but wrapped around the arms and legs, loosely around the throat, the top of the head, holding him in place. You see Vorn.
Does he look like he's awake? Oh. Teera just like looks. She's frozen.
He's there. You can go to him if you wish. He is on the edge. Ever since Shadowheart's trick, he has been teetering on the edge, on the brink. Erasmus has been trying to grasp at his soul, but the magic that was put in place is keeping him just out of her grasp.
Teera walks up to him.
As you
and
pass through the door,
yeah,
you feel a shift. The air pressure feels different. Temperature is different. You can smell the soil. You can feel the change in the humidity. It's cooler in here. The sound now becomes slightly muffled as being underground. And as you walk through and start walking towards Vorn, you see sort of off to the left where the tunnel entrance was in where you were, where this location was originally, is just a wall of earth.
Mm-hmm.
But you've definitely feel like you've crossed over into a completely different place.
Okay. Teera would like walk up to him. Is he like standing like at his normal height, kind of?
Slightly,
Okay.
probably a couple inches higher because he's sort of held up by the roots.
Okay. She would like reach out and touch him and like touch his face. And does he feel like he's alive? Like, does he feel warm or does he feel cold?
A little bit of both. Colder than he should be.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a sense of warmth.
Does he stir at all at my touch?
Where did you touch him? Like on his
On his face.
on his
like,
face?
Yeah.
There's an ever so slight sort of twitch of his eye.
Tira's having a hard time keeping it together, and she just like shakes her head. It's been a long time. It's felt like a long time since she's seen him. And she speaks in Orcish. And she just says, I love you. And I don't know if I'll be able to save you. And she kind of just like falls into him. And she like just holds on to this whole mass of him and the roots and just like all of it. And she just like holds on hard for a long time.
As you're gripping in or gripping onto him, as you fall into him, we the audience see from that same eye that twitched a single tear streaming down his cheek and sort of blends into the side of your face. And Melina looks over at Flip. If you're interested. And she walks over to behind her, the wall where the chair that Teera was sitting in is. And there's a door on that wall. Knock. Knock, knock, knock. Knock. Series of clicks. She opens up the door. And inside the room, well, the first thing you see is as she opens up the door, hanging on the inside of this door from a hook. The door that she opened had the look of like almost like a rough hewn door that you would expect to see on a log cabin. But the other side of the door has a much cleaner, more finished look to it. And hanging from a hook in the center of this door are 2 white lab coats. You tell me what is in this room that you see.
There's a single cot, and typically very Spartan, although there are an odd number of windows, and the windows are at different heights, different angles, and the blocks that make up the room are large, as if it was a very strongly engineered building. The floor is covered with a glassy finish. It's almost reflective, not quite mirror-like, but there's something that's on the floor. And Flip's eyes sort of widen slightly, and he's going to cast Mage Hand, and he's going to try and shut the door.
You're gonna close the door that she just opened?
That's right.
Need you to...
I'm gonna try anyway.
Yeah, I need you to roll a D100, please.
Okay.
D100.
Oh. 3.
You cast the Mage Hand. When you cast it, do you cast it there at the door?
Well, yeah, in that direction.
You cast the Mage Hand. And for just this nanosecond. What would be called a micro expression? You see a shift in Melina's face. Just a micro expression of anticipation. And then the mage hand appears and vanishes almost as quickly as it appeared.
Ooh.
Her eyes narrow at you. It is a bold move to attempt to cast magic within a witch's home. You think I don't have protections in place against such things?
Quite the powerful witch who's afraid of a cantrip. Far be it for me to say, but it just doesn't seem like something I would be afraid of. But we live in different worlds, clearly. And he's gonna point at the open door and he's gonna say, "But that's not my life."
She closes the door. Without taking her hand off the doorknob, she just slides it across the wood to the other side. As she does so, you see the hinges are now on the opposite side.
What? Dude, oh my god.
She turns the doorknob, opens it up. Hanging on the back of this door, hanging in a way... in fact, I don't think it's even hanging. I think it's mounted on the back of the door. And from the other side, where this crossbow sits, mounted on the door, you can see that there's like an arrow slit. And it's a hand crossbow, but it's been mounted on this door like a defensive thing. And the door is otherwise painted in pitch so that it appears almost black.
Mm-hmm.
What's in this room?
It's a much different it's a much different sight than the other room. There's a warm glow from a fire. And it bathes the room in an uncommon warmth that's odd for a building of this style of construction. And from outside of the corner of the room, there seems to be the laughter of a child, but what child or is unclear. There's hushed whispers coming from around the corner as if people were speaking conspiratorially. In the center, there's a large rug, and it's made of the scales of a red drake or a small red dragon that's awkwardly placed in the middle. It's very clean, but what's odd is that whoever lives here walks around the rug, because really a red dragon's hide is a stupid thing to make a rug out of.
A little less than comfortable.
And Flip is gonna grab a chair, and he's going to walk over to Melina, and he's going to hop up on it so that he's standing on it, and more or less he, out of the corner of his eye, he can see what's going on in the room, and he gets a better sense of the words that are being spoken. And he's going to look Melina right in the eye, and he's going to say, "I think there's one thing that you don't understand about me."
And what would that be?
I'm more than the sum of my parts. We could sit here all day and you could show me rooms of places I've been and people I've known. But I, fundamentally, am Flip. And if you haven't figured that out by now, lady, there ain't no helping you.
What a fucking stud, dude.
First, I think you are mistaken in thinking that I, through some convoluted plot and attempt to deceive or coerce you, have created rooms tied to what I believe to be your past, present, or future. Through each of these doors, you pass into a different pocket dimension. Since you and your friends have entered this home, the pocket dimensions have attuned themselves to each of you. These doors are here because of you, not because of me. So, the question of whether you are worth more than the sum of your parts, who your fundamental self is, sounds like something you need to look inward about.
But the point, Melina, is that I wasn't the one who opened the door. And Flip is going to attempt to close the door.
As you reach out to close the door, it swings shut.
He's going to hop back off the chair. And he's going to drag it back across the room. And it's like scratching the floor.
How very Tyrion Lannister of you.
Yeah. I was just thinking that.
And
awesome.
He's going to reach into his pocket and he's going to pull out what looks to be some dried mushroom flakes and pop them in his mouth.
Oh my god. Now is not the time for shrooms, Flip. It's not the time.
She doesn't waste more than a fraction of a moment after you do this, trying to show you anything else, or even pay you any attention at this point. She turns her attention to Cain. Ingvald and Yasula are safe. We should know that. Cain is looking at Melina with a sense of anger. Like, Flip, you can see that Cain is gritting his teeth, is clenching his jaw. But it's as much out of anger as it is out of fear. And he's already, when she turned her attention, he shifted himself just in a subtle way that seems to, like he's trying to, while sitting side by side with his daughter, trying to interpose himself between the two of them. His anger and his fear seems to not be about himself, but about his daughter. Or they better be. All this talk about blood. If I find out any of them have been harmed, I will decorate the inside of this cabin with your blood.
Jesus Christ. Can I say Teera comes out of her pocket dimension at some point during this? Okay, super. I do.
That sentence struck me very, very funny for some reason.
I'm coming out of my pocket dimension now. Thank you. That's next time I feel like a little dissociated and I kind of return. I'm going to be like, well, I'm returning from my pocket dimension.
Everybody should have one of those for some.
Yes, 100%. And Teera doesn't sit down again. She just kind of is standing like by the fireplace.
Well, as it stands now, we'll be traveling for a day and a half. We are all unfortunately stuck in this cabin while it is in transit. When we arrive, your choices are still your own. And I'm not going to try to coerce you to do anything outside of your will. I'm not going to stop trying to convince you that the best future for yourself and for your daughter is to join the immortal Frostheart Coven.
Point of information there, Melina. Did you not say that you needed Teera and Teera to be immortal? Can you really call yourselves the immortal Frostheart Coven if you yourself are not yet immortal?
We're not a coven yet, and still I refer to it as a coven.
Right, so you are also, so you're wrong twice?
Oh, you are mistaken if you think I'm not a part of a coven even now.
Well, but never mind.
I told you
Teera would kind of lean to Flip and be like, I don't exactly understand how it works either.
it's simple. To be in a coven, you need to have 3 witches. At least. I was in a powerful coven. With Ravonna Shadowheart, Venora Briarheart, and myself. And I still am. My sisters are with me always. And as she's saying this, she's kind of walking away from where that door is, and she kind of walks over to sit in the chair opposite of the one you were sitting in, Teera. The very one she was sitting in when she first offered you join her.
Mm-hmm.
And as she says, my sisters are with me always, she removes her outer robe as she sits down in her chair, and unfolding from under the robe, you see the desiccated head of what could only be Venora Briarheart, and you see the disheveled but still beautiful head of Ravonna Shadowheart as they sort of rise up on her shoulders.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Sisters?
What the? Oh my god! Oh. Oh. Well, are they alive? Are they like? Are they just on there?
You see that Venora Briarheart, her hair is a tangled mass of brambles, and her eyes and her mouth appear to have been sewn shut with vines. But the head seems to sort of move in a kind of jerky manner. It's very battered and desiccated. It looks very much like you would expect an undead head to look.
Oh god.
Ravonna Shadowheart has that long black, raven black hair. Her purple eyes have clouded over a bit, but are still purple. And her hair is sort of, like I said, disheveled, greasy. Looks like it has been neither washed nor combed in a very long time. And her skin is gray and sallow, but again, kind of drawing on our original D&D origins here. Ravona Shadowheart was a Shattercock. So that sort of coloration is fairly normal. But they are heads that appear to have been grafted magically onto Melina Frostheart. So alive is kind of subjective, I guess.
Oh, God. Oh. Teera, I have a question. How does the little kid seem to be reacting to all this shit?
Not at all. She is not surprised by this.
Oh my God, this is dark. Okay. Teera looks at this and is like, so that's what happens to members of your coven then, eh?
No. That's what happens to somebody who is not family and not blood and tries to betray me.
Teera sits down in that chair across from Melina. Same arrangement as before. And she would just kind of like lean forward with her elbows on her knees. And she just kind of like looks at her. And she just says, well, we have a day and a half. Let Flip and Kane and little Teera go about their time, and you and I can talk. How's that for a plan?
As I said, you are all free to go about and do whatever you wish. She makes a motion and her shadow detaches once again and moves over to a couple of the other doors that haven't yet been opened. As I said, each wall has at least 2 doors on it. And the shadow opens up a couple of the different doors with a series of knocks and reveals that there are a variety of a couple of different types of comfortable rooms to stay in that have amenities for wash basins and privy and beds and even essentially like a little ensuite, I guess, like a little
amazing,
like a little its own fireplace. I was gonna say, like, yeah, just enough so that you can, if you want to depart from the main cabin and be able to have a place, a little apartment, so to speak. The others are free to do so if they wish. Yeah. For the time being, Kane doesn't show any signs of wanting to go anywhere that little Teera isn't.
I kind of like look at Kane in a knowing way, and part of the scheme, Teera does want to talk to Melina and she wants to ask some questions, but part of this scheme is keeping her occupied, because as long as like Teera can see her and as long as she's like occupying her, she knows that she's not causing any mischief with the others. That's kind of the scheme. Whether Melina knows about it or not is really of no consequence as long as she's occupying her.
I see you still have the sword I gave you.
Yes and no. I run into Dirkhead.
Yes.
This is his sword. It's really his sword.
What did you end up doing? Did you still keep the one that she gave you? I don't remember.
The hilt was all that was left. The blood blade that she made, like Teera was carrying around for a long time is gone. It was shattered, I think.
That's right.
And then
trying to remember that.
She got like the new frost blade.
The true blade of Dirkhead.
Yeah. Yes, correct. So no, she doesn't have that one anymore.
Yes, I felt when Dirkhead's spirit was released.
Yeah. He was under your thumb for a long time.
I find it interesting that for a man who was not your father, that you insist in every iteration of this blade, you still maintain it as your own, almost like a totem. And that even now, while you refuse to join a family coven, you hold on to a trifecta of power. And she's kind of nodding at the sword that's pretty obvious in its massive size on your back, but also the fact that you hold both the handle, the hilt of the sword that she shattered and then remade and then was shattered again, but you also hold the hilt of the sword you picked up in the burning village.
Correct. Teera would kind of just like sigh, and she would just say, "These things have meaning to me. That's all.
They're just steel.
They are not just steel. They have meaning to me. They have power in them. It's hard to say. It's you wouldn't know nothing about swinging a sword, but it's having one that you know. It's important. It is. And it has nothing to do with me not wanting to be a witch. That's something different altogether."
You've got at best another 50 years, maybe 60, to make the most of this life. If you're able to save your half-orc companion back there, perhaps the two of you settle down and have a family. And in 50 years, you maybe get to see those children bear children. But with your lifestyle, maybe not. Maybe you've got 5 years left, 10 years left. Maybe there are no children in your future. With me, there's eternity. You can live longer than the elves.
Oh my god. Is there alcohol around here? Is there booze of any kind?
If Teera is looking around for alcohol, Teera will find alcohol.
Yeah. I imagine if I can extrapolate a little bit, Teera almost reflexively, as her mother is telling her about eternity and all of this shit, she reaches to the side table. She doesn't even realize like she hasn't poured herself a drink, but when she reaches over, there's one there, like almost as if she knew exactly where it was and had it ready, and like almost had like already been drinking it. She like knew exactly where to reach for it. And it's only after she takes a sip and sets it back down that she realizes she does not remember anybody preparing her this drink or preparing it herself. And she like is kind of nodding at the 5-year threat question mark. And then she just kind of shrugs and says, "That's mortality for you. A little bit uncertain."
So when we
live
reach
as long as the elves.
When we reach our destination, you and your friends go into the temple and face whatever challenges await you there. And if you succeed, you retrieve the petals of the black lotus flower. What then?
Well, we're gonna have to decide what exactly they do and how many we get. Since you probably know all this shit anyway. I want to unpetrify Togo. I want to make Marta back the way she was. I want to bring Vaughn back to life. I want to see Mizya again. and I want to keep my niece as far away from you as possible. That's what I want. That's the plan. And Teera kind of like satisfied, like leans back in the chair. She's maybe a little bit drunk already. And she like takes another sip of her drink and kind of like raises her eyebrows, kind of like, what do you think of that sort of thing?
I do know a little bit about the Black Lotus. I know where it is. I know what it can be used for. And I know that each 10-year cycle, the Black Lotus generates anywhere from 1 to 4 petals. It's different every time. And I know that the Temple of the Black Lotus has been sealed with powerful magic, preventing witches from entering.
That's a shame.
Otherwise, I would have retrieved it myself. I wouldn't have bothered to even have told Shadowheart about it. And she kind of looks to her right with disdain at the Shadowheart head that just kind of goes.
Oh my god.
And just a quick reminder that she has 3 heads.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that, but thank you. Oh.
Say you are able to achieve 1 or 2 of these goals. What makes you think that I will prevent, or that I will stop my pursuit of my granddaughter?
The Black Lotus is more powerful than you are. It has magics that you are not able to usurp.
It is protected by magics that I am not able to usurp myself.
Well, maybe you'll never stop, but
Will you
I'll
and
be
your friends
here.
stop me?
I will stop you. Kane will stop you. Hell, Flip will stop you. You don't know how powerful he is.
You ever play cards?
Once or twice.
You ever play Liar's Gambit?
Yes. Many times.
The whole point of this game is to place increasing wagers while maintaining an impassive face, or you lie to your opponents about the strength of what you hold in your hand. I am very good at lying, but I find that the truth is so much more powerful. I would rather show all my cards on the table and tell you what you are dealing with.
Very well. That would
Teera,
be a nice
dear.
change of pace.
And she kind of throws her head in the direction of little Teera. And she suddenly says, "Yes, grandmother?" Your auntie, I think, and your father and their friend require a demonstration. Yes, grandmother. And she kind of pushes away and kind of slides off the bench so her little bare feet hit the floor. And she walks around the table and walks over to that sort of preparation island. And she grabs a little stool and pushes it up against there and walks up the couple steps. And she kind of looks across the top, and then she reaches over and she grabs a knife.
Oh shit. Teera is like like
It's
all of her muscles are
huge.
clenched.
It's huge in her tiny hand. Kane starts to get up to move over there, and Melina just holds her hand up like this as little Teera, in one quick motion, grabs the blade with her hand and goes,
No! Oh,
and you
God!
watch as
Oh,
Melina's
shit.
hand slices open and blood begins to pour down. And little Teera just stands there. And then Melina says, "That is enough, dear." And with her other hand...
Is little Tira's hand bleeding too?
Yes. With just a quick gesture, Melina goes like this, and the wound on little Teera's hand seals up, and she's fine.
And Tira would like, I imagine this is kind of happening like behind her, and when Tira turns back to Melina, be like, "What the hell is this? What did you do?"
I'm pretty sure your goblin friend has figured it out.
Well,
But
I haven't. You tell me. Lay your cards on the table.
I have linked the child's life to my own. Both of us will live, as long as the other lives. But if anything happens to me, the same will happen to her.
Tira looks like she's gotten the wind knocked out of her. She like sits back in the chair, and like you hear the chair creak as Tira like leans back in it. And she just shakes her head. She is Kane still like in this like common room?
Yeah, Kane had gotten up from the table to come running over there. He actually
Yeah.
makes it to little Teera and is holding her hand, looking at it. He kind of takes the knife out of her hand and sets it down. And he's looking at her hand, and she goes, "I'm fine, Papa. Grandmother
God.
said she will always take care of me."
And I look over at the two of them, and I just fucking glare back at Melina. All right, yeah. If now, Tira would fucking rage and do something stupid if she didn't think that it would ultimately hurt her niece.
Well, I think I've made my point. You are free to go wherever you wish, and do whatever you wish. We will arrive in a day and a half at our destination. If a door opens for you, you are free to pass through it. If at any point you have changed your mind about my offer, well, you know where to find me. And with that, she rises up, and she kind of, as she stands up, she pulls this outer robe on, and the two heads sort of, and they seem to almost flatten out. It's hard to tell. As they duck down, the robe kind of comes over and settles. There's no sign that they were there.
She just looks, wow.
It doesn't even look like AD shoulder pads. Just, there's nothing
Yeah,
there.
right. It's just shoulders. Tira just is speechless.
I have some reading to
She's-
do, and I will be in the library. She heads for one of the doors. In fact, probably the one that she had opened twice for Flip. She takes the handle
Once again.
and she moves it back over to the other side and provides a series of 2, then 4, then 5 knocks, and then opens it and enters into a room that looks a lot like one of the study rooms at Candlekeep. Just massive, beautiful stone architecture, firefly lanterns, and books galore as she steps into this room and closes the door behind her. You have the room to yourself. It's little Teera, Kane, you, and Flip. If you wish to converse, you may do so, or you may turn in to your rooms for the afternoon or whatever you would like to do.
Teera looks over at Flip, and she would just say, Flip, you are maybe the cleverest person I know. There's got to be some way out of this, right? Tell me there's a way out of this.
Flip is gonna sort of rub his temple. And maybe, but blood magic is amongst the most complicated and flawed and perfect all at once. It's corruption of life magic, and I have no answers, only guesses. And those guesses, you're not gonna like them.
And Teera, from her spot leaning back in this chair, she does kind of like lean forward again, sort of hands on her knees, and looks almost pleadingly at Flip. And when he says you're not going to like him, she just kind of leans in and she goes, I'm all ears.
Flip is gonna lean in, and he's gonna exhale deeply. The only way to sever a blood connection is death. The only way that I know, and he's gonna lower his voice even further. He's gonna sort of look around. They both have to die. And then we hope we can bring the little one back.
And Teera, like, looks over at Kane and little Teera. Just sort of, like, shakes her head and, like, buries her face in her hands.
And I think that is where we're going to end tonight's session.
Wow. Yeah. That's, like, perfect. Shit. Oh, God. There's going to be hard choices, aren't there? God, I don't like hard choices.
So I will acknowledge that
Ow.
I actually pushed up against one of my own lines, which is harming children. But that's also why she very quickly healed her. But it was to make a point that she has bound their life forces together to protect herself primarily, but presumably to also protect little Teera.
It's to protect herself. It is mostly 99% to protect her own dumbass. I know it. Oh my God. I'm pissed. Cari's pissed. This is fucking coming to a head.
I will say that even with that initial perception check, Flip, you would definitely know that Melina is having a hard time getting a read on you. Reading you like an opponent in a chess match or something like that.
Yes.
You get the sense that she's doing probing maneuvers. She's attempting different gambits, and you're not taking the bait, and she's not sure what to do with
She
that.
is frustrated.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
awesome.
So there you have it.
Wow.
I think.
Wow. What a setup.
If there's any plotting or conversing the two of you are able to do between now and next week, feel free to do that, and that can sort of be a little bit of a time jump. Hey, we talked about this, if that's what you guys choose to do. We'll have a little bit of time at the beginning of next week's session for you to continue. If there's other things you want to talk with Melina or anybody else about, or any exploring you want to do, for the magical hut arrives at the destination.
Wow.
So
that's great.
And I'll point out that next week will be episode 100.
Wow.
Which is pretty exciting. The first time I've run one other campaign collectively over 100 episodes over multiple seasons. But Cari and I were talking before we went on the air about how this campaign is one of the only ones that I don't run seasons on. And so we've just had continuous episodes. So it will be the first time, I believe, that I've ever had to write triple digits for an episode number.
Wow, that's
pretty
cool.
exciting.
That's cool.
Pretty exciting. This is also, I think, I could be mistaken, but I believe we just recently crossed over the 3-year mark on this campaign too.
Oh yeah, I think so.
So big milestones, 3 years and over 100 episodes.
So many adventures, yeah.
So
May 2021, I think we started.
Yeah, I think so.
Holy cow.
So it's fitting that we're going to end in May 2024.
Wow.
So with that, you can this week the only scheduled game that we have is on Thursday. I will say that if you did not watch last week's Kids on Bikes, do yourself a favor, go to my Twitter at @mtd_Jake. I put a highlight up. It's a 4-minute clip. If you want to see Cari and the other players' minds be progressively blown from moment to moment continuously over 4 minutes, go watch that clip. Let me just say, spoiler alert, so turn your ears off if you don't want to hear this and you want to watch the video. 3, 2, 1. The session started with me continuing to DM the game as per normal, and it ended with me as a player and Jeremy as the DM.
How we got there is,
and that was a 4-minute transition.
The 4 most magical minutes on this channel I have ever been a part of.
And I think Cari dropped more F-bombs in those 4 minutes than in any other block of time.
It was pretty stunning, and I feel bad about that now. But
no, don't.
You know,
it was amazing.
It was
amazing. So I do recommend going and check that out. I have to say that is probably my Oscar moment when it comes to technical and storytelling wizardry. Jeremy colluded with me, obviously, but very proud of that. In the first session that Jeremy is now DMing for an arc, and me as a player, is happening this Thursday. And everything that Jeremy...
It can only go downhill from here.
Everything that Jeremy does is canon. He has carte blanche with the campaign. So it's a fun experiment. And then, of course, next week we'll be back with episode 100 of this, and episode 16 of Sky Metal will be next week as well. So,
I love Sky Metal.
Yeah. So, thank you everybody who tuned in tonight. As always, we always appreciate seeing chat active. And seeing there we go. My buttons weren't responding. I couldn't turn off the music. We love seeing everybody in chat. And if you are somebody that likes to lurk quietly in the background, we appreciate you all the same. Or if you're watching later on the VODs, we appreciate you and hope you enjoy our presentations. We're gonna go ahead. Oh wait, I almost skipped over the most important part. I've got to thank these two amazing people. the last two, and then there were two.
Oh my
As we
goodness.
head into the finale, though a little birdie tells me there may be more than 2 players at the finale. Huge thank you, as always, to Gary and Cari, without whom this would just be me talking to myself for a couple hours. With that, we're going to go ahead and end the stream the same way we end every stream. You can say it with me if you want.
Da-da-da, da-da-da-da.